Check one thing. Oh, looks like we are live. Hello, everyone. We're live. This is Meet the Masters. Tim Watson here, joined by Master Mike Black from Mimidis Karate. Hello, sir.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm great, man. How's it going?
Doing well.
Hanging out in your fancy desk and office at home.
Yes. We all make do in these times, so trying to make the best of the room that I have in my house.
Are the kids at home, or are they sequestered to another part of the house?
They're actually in daycare and at school, but he does have my oldest has an early dismissal, but we should probably be done well before that happens. So I think we're safe. I'm in a silent household right now.
Nice.
All is good.
So how old are the kids now?
3 and 8.
3 and 8. Nice.
Yeah, both boys. It's a good crazy time. Wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's awesome. How are so you were saying that you're working from home. How are things at the dojang? Are you getting in and teaching?
Yeah, no, things are good. Everybody took a hit. Everybody felt the pain. Mimidis Karate was no different. And what's great to see now is as things are starting to loosen up, I think people are a little bit more comfortable. Everybody's still doing the mask and enforcing the mask rules and those types of things. But things are starting to happen on an uptick. And it's really great to see more trials come through. The classes are growing. More people are comfortable coming into the dojang as opposed to the Zoom classes, which we still offer both. But it is nice to see the bigger classes. We still don't have the contact like we had before, where you can pair people up and do those types of things. But you just got to be smart about for the next, hopefully, just a couple more months and get through it. But definitely things are on the up and up. It's a positive for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's pretty exciting. We've had the same thing happening lately, and it's just exciting to see. When we came back, the beginners class and the Tigers and Dragons class was empty,
Yeah.
last June, and now to see them growing and people excited and in like we were before,
Right.
it's really nice.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny because like everybody, the way you teach now is so different.
Mhm.
Um, you're giving commands, and when you can't, it's like you can't just grab somebody's arm and correct it, and then do those types of things, and uh, and you can't do the like. At least we don't do the one steps where you're taking each other down and those types of things. So it's really it makes you think like I got to be creative. I got to make this interesting, and I find myself and all the instructors like I got to challenge the way I do it because if I keep doing it the same way, it's just going to become very like just droning for the whole group. So you try to think of different ways to get them engaged, to learn the same techniques, but different ways. And that's actually, if anything, I think that's a huge positive out of all this because it really forced us to think, how can we do the same thing a different way and still get a good result? And, we don't have all the answers. I'm sure you feel the same way. It's like,
Yeah.
well, that didn't work, but I can at least try something else next time that maybe will stick, or that I find a little gem here and there that might stick moving forward.
Absolutely, and I found it helpful talking to other people, and
Yeah.
it's like, man, that's a really good idea. Like how I'm totally using that. Uh,
Right.
Even like pool noodles. So like you talk about
Yes.
steps. People lose kind of sight of what they're actually doing because they don't have anything tangible to hit,
Yeah.
and just having something to get in the way of them is really helpful.
For sure. Yeah.
Got a couple people saying hi as we get started here. Tom Lyons says hello. We got
Hey, Tom.
Zabari. Brian Burkett says hello. Master McCarty from Alabama. Got Willie Richardson says hello too. Got the Richardson folks saying hi. Got some of our UK friends, Natalie Walker and Lindsay from the UK.
Great.
Master Claus says Krispy Kreme for life.
Oh, man, my brother. we we were like, oh my god, the last Masters camp. We went and we went to Cracker Barrel for breakfast, and there was a bunch of us there. And there's a Krispy Kreme like real close by, and we were like little kids that lost our minds because the light popped on. They were making them fresh, and we were like, Krispy Kreme. So we get in there, we're like, that looks good, that looks good, that looks good. I think we walked out of there. I don't know if it was 2 or 3 dozen Not that we ate them all ourselves, we shared, but it was hilarious just to like, oh, a fresh Krispy Kreme coming off that belt. Man, there's
That's
nothing, can't replace that.
I think I remember seeing pictures of you guys in the hats.
In the hats, yeah, yeah. We did the whole thing. It was great.
That's one of the perks of traveling for events.
Yeah.
Remember traveling? So let's get started. Let's talk about some of the way back stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, you've done what, almost 50 of these, so I really appreciate the opportunity here. I was humbled and blessed that you asked me. It was funny. I'm like, oh, he's got through 50, so I can imagine you and Master Aaron Watson sitting together going, let's send in the clown. All right, what's next? What do we have? So yeah, here I am. Well, let's do it.
No, it's funny. We go back and forth on text, every now and then, and it's one of those people ask like, "What's what do you do? How do you figure out who you interview?" And it's really just one of those where I sit down and it's like, well, who haven't I? And I try not to do too many Region 8 people in a row because that would be easy because I know them all. But it was one of those, it's like, man, I need to do one with Mike because he's got a great story and I know we've got some fun stuff that we can talk about. So
Absolutely.
And on top of that, there's, I think, around 350 masters in the World Hung Judo Association. So I haven't even scratched the surface.
Yeah.
You think?
Well, I appreciate being early in the process. I mean,
well, there you go.
It's great.
Thanks for joining me.
You bet.
So, Mr. Lyons asked, "What type of beer is in your cup, sir?"
This is high quality H2O. I guarantee it.
It's not even lunchtime yet.
That's right.
So give us a little backstory for someone who isn't familiar with your story or you.
Sure.
Tell us where your training started, where you're training, still training in the same place.
Yeah.
How you got started.
Sure. So I started 10 years old. It was January of 1986. At the time, I had been taking swimming lessons. Our family didn't have a pool. We maybe hit water once a year. But that was one of the things my parents were always like, get swimming lessons, which I completely agree with. Need to learn how to swim in case you ever, it's a great life lesson. So we're going to the Lancaster YWCA for these swimming lessons, and they were fine. They were okay. And I was in other sports at the time, and I was one of those mediocre at best type kids, and never really found a sport that I loved. I enjoyed playing. I did baseball, I did wrestling, I did football, the usual sports and that you did during like your elementary, middle school, high school years. And I was just the okay athlete. So at 10 years old, I was just like, really didn't have my niche. And I remember at the end of one of our swimming lessons, there was a flyer on a wall and it said, coming soon, karate classes. And I was just like, Mom, I want to do that. And so went home, my parents had a talk, and they're like, I think that's a good idea. They could probably see that I could use a little bit of confidence. Very shy kid, believe it or not. So it was like one of those things where it's just like, probably good for our son to have something like this happen. So I remember we went in for our very first class, and at the very front was Mr. Gary Freeman. He was a Chodanbo at the time. And he was just like stretching, warming up, welcoming everybody in. And here we were just kind of like shuffling in. And he was talking to a gentleman, and we didn't realize who he was. And he left. And a couple minutes later, he comes back. And here is this guy, full dobok, black belt. And he introduced himself as Master Mimidis, or Mr. Mimidis, Mr. Paul Mimidis. And I remember sitting there as a kid, like the impression of, here I am, 10 years old. This is the first time I saw like the real life black belt. And just like that, I was like, that's what I want to be. Just the way he held himself. his poise, the way he like commanded the class. You know, this is the first class, but the way he just, his demeanor, the way he just brought everybody together and said, you know, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. There was no like, you know, barking orders, like get in line, Cobra Kai type stuff. Like it was just very like, you know, basically starting off when here's our path. You know, this is new for me too, because this was his first time actually having a studio, and it was really cool. And it was, we were in these rooms because we were at the Y with these kind of lower ceilings, but they had these kids. It was like a daycare room, so they had like these kids' artwork hanging from the ceiling. And I remember during classes, we would always try to kick the artwork as like targets. So that was like your goal. And so I mean, it's kind of funny, goofy stuff like that. But it was like, it was really neat to like have that. And it was one time a week at first. And I remember the commitment. It didn't hit me till later that the commitment my parents gave, because we lived 45 minutes away. So for them to drive me up 45 minutes for these classes and then come back, and it was just like one of those things, as a parent now that's running around pretty much almost every night of the week to a different type of practice, I sit there and go, wow. I mean, the commitment my parents gave to me, you know, I'm certainly giving back to my kids, but like they were making sure I wasn't going to miss a class. Like no matter how you woke up on a Saturday and you didn't feel like, maybe you didn't feel like going at the time, they're like, we're going. You're signed up. We're going. And I'm so glad that they pushed me at those times where like maybe you didn't feel like you wanted to go, and every time you left class, you're like, I'm so glad I came. Like I can't wait to go back. So I mean, there's stuff like that. And our journey at the Y then took off. Like if we couldn't get that room, one I remember one of the big things was there was this huge gym on the lower level that if we got to train in the gym, that was awesome, because that's usually when we got to break out the bongs and like get to spin different things and do those types of stuff. And Master Mice was always good about like if it was a nice day in the summer, like everybody get lined up and you go, get your shoes on, we're going to the park. And a couple times we'd like go to the park and train. So stuff like that. And I remember the one time it was a little odd. I'll have to ask Master Mice about this, but like somehow we ended up this place called ABC Beverage. And it's like this little like beverage place. And we're walking down these steps. It's dark, low ceilings, and it's like, we're training here today. And we're like, okay. Like it's like just one of these weird like off places that I think he probably got access to from Master Beams. It was just one of those like, all right, we're going to train here and don't ask questions. Okay.
You mentioned it was once a week. How long was class at that point?
So yeah, classes were considerably different then. I think it was at least an hour and a half. And so if you look at, you know, and I know we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, but like how things have changed, um, you know, because we didn't have, you know, multiple classes at first during the week, we had to make the most use of our time. So our first, you know, definitely for the first, it was almost a year, I think, where they're hour and a half classes. Well, I mean, we stayed with hour and a half classes after that, but like because it was once a week, it was hour and a half, and you just tried to squeeze out as much as you could because that was the time that you had. But then the expectation was after that class, you go home and practice. Like I need to see that you practice on what we talked about. So when you come back next week, we're not going to sit here and just review everything. We want to do a quick review, and we want to make sure that we build off of that. And that was important because it put a lot of onus back on the student to make sure that you were sticking with it and you were dedicated, so the instructor could then get the best use of the time in class.
You said a couple things that it's funny. I don't really think about, and I've been teaching for so long, but you mentioned that first time you came in as a white belt and you saw a black belt and you were like, wow, that's what I want to do. And, you know, I do new lessons every day with kids,
Yeah.
and I started when I was 21. So I guess I never really had that kind of, you know, epiphany, like, wow, like that's so that, you know, I think that's pretty cool to think of. And not that it's going to really change anything, but you know, that's just a reminder of that kind of role model, and you know, kids are watching.
For sure. Yeah. And you know, it does carry a lot of weight. And I think sometimes you do have to remind yourself, because it's, you know, you don't want to be too casual in the dojo. I mean, we all like to have fun and we all like to joke around, but at the same time, like you're in the dojo and you know, you gotta be on. You gotta make sure that, you know, people are watching and like, is that really how I want to act? Or is that really what a black belt does? Or is that really what a master does? So it helps put yourself in check to make sure that you are, doing the things that you should be doing. And it's just everyday life, but at the same time, especially with impressionable, first time students, whether it's kids or adults,
Right.
I think they have the same type of impression coming in as well.
That's true. I sometimes I feel like adults are more nervous than the kids are.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think, what I'm finding now, especially as we get older, the adults come in and they want to compare themselves to you, like, oh,
Right.
we're the same age. And then they go, well, I should be able to do what you're doing. And it's like, you're forgetting that I have the 35 years of doing this. It may look a little easier right now compared to you struggling with it, but that's why I'm here.
Right.
And I think once they get over that hump, I think a lot of older students put too much pressure on themselves, and I think that's where we need to like talk them through the process and build their confidence up, which is that's awesome when you can do that, because it's like, okay, put those worries to the side,
Mhm.
let's start with the basics, and you're going to find the progress. And when they do, like I can think of an orange belt right now, I won't name names, but he came in, tight, frustrated, like, I'm never going to be able to do this, and he's an orange belt now, and like I can see the way he walks into the dojo is just like, I'm here, I'm gonna have fun, I'm gonna learn something, and he's just more relaxed. Like and it's like that's the progress you want to see. That's the progression you want to see as especially some of the more mature students that come into the dojo.
Yeah, that's again another great point where it's just like, hey, this should be fun. Like
Yeah,
it's okay if you're not good. If you're not
yeah,
that great, it's all right, right? It's a learning process. And then people get, all hemmed up about testing. It's like, do you like
yeah,
your Tong Sudo? Yes. Well, guess what? You're gonna do Tong Sudo on Saturday, and it's gonna be awesome. And you're gonna get, you're gonna get a new belt. Like,
yeah.
so yeah, that's a great point. Master Chris Anderson says, good morning.
Good
Uh,
morning.
Gainer Russell and some guy named Craig Foshnot says, top of the morning.
Good morning.
I'm surprised Master Mimidis hasn't popped on. He must be off doing taking Edgar for a walk.
Yeah, he might be on a class or a working on his shoulder too.
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah, some PT.
gotcha. So he mentioned one of the stories that you had a little scuffle at school one time, and you were a little nervous about that.
Yeah, yeah. I'll spare the details, but yeah, there was an issue. One of everybody has their scraps kind of going through it. So early on, I think it was a green belt, and had an issue with school, and we all did our time. But as we were going through the process, I was so worked up that Master Midas was going to kick me out because I fought in school. And I remember going into his office, and my mom was like, "You got something to tell him." And I was like, "Okay." And so I went through the whole story, and I'm sitting there like almost in tears. I'm just like, I don't know, I don't know what to do. I don't want to quit, and I don't want you to throw me out. And he looked at me. Yeah, he does one of those. He goes, "Well, I'll tell you that I'm proud of you." And I was like, what? I was like, not the answer I was looking for. And he went through about how I stuck up for myself, and I invoke the fight? No. Did you, were you harassing? No. Were you defending yourself? Yes. That's all I can ask for. And he goes, and you did what you needed to do. You whatever the suspension was. And he goes, that's part of it. He goes, doesn't matter who started it. You both were involved. He goes, that's fine. Put that aside. He goes, but welcome back to class. And I was just like, like to me, just I was like, this is it. I made the green belt. I'm done. And it was devastated to think that it was over, because I thought I blew it. But here it was a nice life lesson that you actually did what you were supposed to do. You stuck up for yourself. There was no other option. Yeah, I tried to talk out of it. I tried to not get to the point where any type of violence was involved, and unfortunately it got to that point, and an altercation happened. But yeah, it was one of those things. I was kind of rattled as a young student.
Yeah, but then afterwards, it's just like,
Yeah, I was like, okay.
Oh, yeah, his ears were burning. He just chimed in and said, "I'm here."
Ah, there we go.
He's hiding in the shadows. So you talked about the YMCA, and you were there for a while. Do you remember when I talked to him? He talked about eventually moving to an actual retail location. You remember, moving, transitioning to another place?
Yeah, yeah, we were like the troubadours for a little while. So we went from we were at the Y, and then we went to a small place beside a Little Caesars Pizza. That was a great studio. Unfortunately, the Little Caesars had a fire, and the delayed some things for a while. And then we actually were back there for a little bit, and then from there we moved over to the area he's in now. But we were in it's funny, it's now another Little Caesars.
I know.
We're in a couple different shops within that, where until we moved to where he is now. We've been there for, I couldn't even tell you. He'd have to let us know how many years it's been.
Yeah,
But it's been a great run for that. It's like, twice as wide as what we had before. And it's just a great, you've been there. I mean, it's just a great studio space. So yeah, we moved around a little bit, but that was always kind of the fun part of the journey. The different places that you train, the different things, like how you grow as a studio, just watching him grow the studio in that way, um, and to where it is now. It's just it's cool to be along for that journey.
yeah,
Um,
I've been around. I've been training for about 20 years. You said it's been 35 for you, and one of the things that's crazy is just the amount of people that funnel in and out,
yeah,
and uh, just the impact, even for those who aren't always there too long, you still are like, man, I remember that person, and then you'll see them down the road, and kind of like you said, as far as that impression, they still have that impression on you after all those
yeah.
years. It's pretty cool.
And what's the first thing they always say when you see him? I'm
Hmm.
coming back.
Yeah,
Okay. I always tell them we're always here. Like
that's right.
whenever you want to come back,
Yep.
we're always here.
There's a guy in Evolution, and it's the running. I've been there for about 5 years now, and every time I see him, it's like, still waiting on you to come back. Well, yeah, well, all right, well, back, you know where to find us.
Yep, absolutely. We're not going anywhere.
So, at what level did you get the chance to start? He said 25 years. He's been there for 25.
25. Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. At what point did you get the chance to start helping out with classes?
Uh, Boy, so there were times where I would help every once in a while. I would say like late brown, red belt, definitely. Like not to run a class, but to, hey, new student or newer student, or take the white belts and start to show them the Gichi Hyungs, before we had the Seika Hyungs,
That's right.
and kind of go through that, and then a little bit more at Chodambo. You got to do a little, you might do the warm up. You might run hands or something like that. But really, for us, it didn't happen. And I say us, Mimidis, we weren't instructors until we were at that black belt level. And one of the initiations, one of them, was to get that black belt on. You get it, and you're standing in front of class, and Master Meister go, "All right, class is yours." And you're like, "Okay." And at first, you're like, "Let's do this." So cheer up, and the mind goes blank. Like you've done this hundreds, thousands of times. Like you can't even remember to say, cookie like, and you're like, kind of look over your shoulder, and somebody's going, cookie, like, like walking you through the process. And it's so funny because I I try to keep that tradition going, because I think it's important that once you're a Chodan, a black belt, and you've earned it. It's great to see the students see you as the instructor, but there's always that, like, you've done this so many times, and then all of a sudden when you have a chance to do it, like you just like stage fright. And it kind of helps people get over that hump, but it also makes them realize that the person that's up front doesn't always have an easy job. Like we're up there, and hopefully we make it look easier, the more we do it. But I think it helps remind people that, like, oh yeah, there's a difference of being told what to do and then staying up there and running a class to make it look smooth, to make it go from one thing to the next. And I think it helps a little bit with that humility, because like kind of feeling your oats at times when you're getting that belt, and then it's like, all right, I made it, and then it's like just a little slap down, like, hey, you still got more to learn. And I think it's nice. It's a nice balance sometimes when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Even after teaching for years, every once in a while you lose your train of thought, and then you look and it's like, oh crap, everyone's staring at me.
Right, yeah. Or you say like something in Korean that's supposed to be for like hands and it's supposed to be for feet, and they're all like, you just what?
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
But
you're
we'll
supposed
do
to
what you
read
just
my mind.
demonstrated.
What I meant, not what I said.
Right, just do it.
In those in that time frame when you started as a kid, do you have memories of meeting Grandmaster Shin?
I do. We were fortunate. Um, Region 8, hands down. We were fortunate to have Grandmaster Shin in Region 8. I was very fortunate to have Master Midas, who worked very closely with Grandmaster Shin. And, you know, first I'll preface all of this. I look back and I say we collectively were taught by Grandmaster Shin. And I think that is truly special, because I look at it now and say anybody new, even in the last couple of years, that starts will never have that experience. And I sit there and go, wow, like that is really a thing that we get to carry on, that says we might not have been direct students of him, but in a way we were still his students. We trained under him. We were at different camps. We were at different clinics, those types of things. He was our teacher. He was our grandmaster. And to have our founder be that, like, be there for us, was just, you look now and go, that was truly special. And that's something I think we can all hold, and just like, that's unfortunately something that you can't, other new people won't be able to have or share. But it's up to us to make sure that, his stories, his vision, his passion continues. And I think that's where, the foundation of what we're all learning came from him. And I think that's where that's a big responsibility for us. And so anyway, kind of a little bit of a tangent there, but like I do remember we would do combined gut tests. And again, that was one of the reasons, like I said, once a week. So our testing process was very long. And I don't think I tested for orange belt until September. So started in January, didn't test till September. And I think at one point there was like, we were trying to do it in August, but Master Midas was trying to get with Master Beam and Bob Recker from Lidditz, and we were going to do a combined gut test. And we, I don't think it happened at first, and then finally it happened in September. And I just remember, Grandmaster Shin being there. So it was one of those, like, we had the opportunity to have Grandmaster Shin come to a gut test. And I don't think, 10, 11 years old, you realize the impact of that, or the opportunity that was there in front of you, that, first of all, we were joined by other schools, but then to have our Grandmaster, to us, it was just like, that's cool. Like, yeah, Grandmaster's here. And then you realize how much of a big deal, and how much other studios, how much other regions didn't have that opportunity. And it didn't happen all the time, but I a handful of times that Grandmaster Shin was invited, and when he was able to come, he would come to our gut test. And that, I look back and say, boy, that was cool, because again, we probably had an opportunity that other people didn't or wouldn't always have to share. And he was he would speak at the end, and just like he did in camps or at the master's clinic, you would go through the test, and he was very insightful of what he saw, and very complimentary of the students and the instructors. And again, you can't explain it thoroughly enough, because it was something that it happened, and then you look back and go, wow, that is something that unfortunately not everybody had the opportunity to do. But yeah, that was my first recollection of him, going through that. And then the first time that I met him, like actually got to, obviously you would see him, but you never knew if he knew you. And so apparently there's a little bit of backstory here. I had gone to college and I went through, I got my bachelor in art degree, so I was learning graphic design, and I was doing different things for Master Midas, and I do little things here and there for the association, and I guess it caught the eye of some folks, Maggie Gonski at the time, and apparently there was a conversation between Grandmaster Shin and Master Midas, and he said, "I want the guy who do artwork," and Master Midas is like, "Guy? What guy? Like, who are you talking about?" It's like, the guy, your student. He's like, "Oh, okay, Mike." So we had the Red Rose tournament coming up, and I didn't know any of this at the time. We're at the Red Rose tournament. I was done competing, and I'm just kind of standing there watching. And Master Midas comes up and he goes, "Grandmaster Shin would like to talk to you." And I'm like, "Me? Like, no." He's like, "No." He's like, "Seriously, come with me. Grandmaster Shin would like to talk to you. I'd like to talk to you now." And of course, tournaments, there's the stage, the dais, and nobody would dare go up there. And so he walked me up and he's like, "All right, just follow me, just follow me. Don't say anything, just follow me." So he walks up, and and there's Grandmaster Shin. He's just watching over the tournament. And he's, "Sir, this is Mike Black. You had asked for him." He looks over at me. He goes, "Oh!" Pushes Master Midas out of me. He goes, "You sit down now." He goes, to this day, he goes, "I'm gonna use you." And I'm like, "Okay." So he starts going through, and we had a half-hour discussion at least about what he wanted to do with the newsletter, what he wanted to do with communications, what he wanted to do as far as like advertise, like basically just kind of what could I do to bring to the table for the association to help get out the word of Tang Sudo. What could I do to enhance the communication in some way? And he had a very clear vision and passion of like what he wanted to do as far as like, each region does their own thing. We don't always know what happens in each region. The whole world is doing something right now. I need to tie that all together to make sure we have unification. And again, this is before internet was anything, before we had crazy mobile phones, that type of stuff. So it was like I need some way to voice of what's going on out there, and making sure that everybody understands, they feel that they're part of this whole association. And he made that very clear to me. And that's where he was just like, "I want the newsletter and I want this to happen. And it's got to happen at least 3-4 times a year." And it was a cool opportunity to be part of that, because but just the way he was just like, "I'm going to use you." And that was just his way of saying, "You have a talent that can be very beneficial, and we're going to work on this together." And other people have had that too. I mean, whether your construction needs, attorney, whatever, there's different things that if you have a skill, it could be very beneficial to the association. And that was an honor, and still is to this day, for all the stuff that we do.
So talk about some of the things that you worked on. You worked on the newsletter.
Yeah. So worked on the newsletter. Gosh, did that for a number of years. And the other things, well, I'll just, if I have a little list here. So a couple of things I'm really proud of are, well, proud of it all, but designer and desktop publisher for the revisions of volume 2 and 3. And then most recently, Grandmaster Strong's book, The One More Time biography. That was a huge honor to be part of that. And then working currently on the philosophy book. One of the things, I don't know if everybody remembers the proclamation poster and all the information that had to go out about the proclamation. I designed all of that. And
You're talking about when Grandmaster Shin got his link.
Yeah, when Grandmaster Shin was being promoted. So the neat thing was the poster went around, we all signed it, I believe at the One World Tournament. And then to see that at the headquarters is there with all of our signatures, and just knowing that I had a piece of that part of history. Been an association board member from 2004 to present because of the newsletter. So that was one of the things that got me on the board. And then we'll transition that later. But anyway, been doing different things as far as like world and regional events, the T-shirts, posters, booklets, member or master camp shirts, black belt camp shirts. Gosh, I'm just trying to find like.
Was it 2004? You did the artwork for the poster?
Yeah. So that was, I had some encouragement from again Maggie Gonski and Master Mimidis. They liked what I was doing, and they were like, "Yeah, I really think you should, do a poster." Um, so that leads to a funny story. So I did the poster, and um, it was selected. So when you get selected at the time, you had an option of a couple different things of as a thank you, and one was you could receive a check, you could receive a check and donate it back, and I believe there was one other thing, and here it is. It's 2004, early in my career. I didn't have a lot of money, and this was my. I looked at it and said, "Well, I did the work. I'll take the check, and I'll use that as that's my money for the trip to Florida. So it'll pretty much cover my expenses. This will be great." So we go down, and we're at the the world tournament, and they're going through all the opening ceremony stuff, and it comes to they're going through the Hall of Fame awards, and they go through like, and this year's poster, and they made a big deal about it back then, but they're like, in this year's poster, was selected by Mike Black. So I go up on stage, and I remember, because I was all arranged ahead of time of what I chose. So I said, I'll take the check. I remember going up, and there's Grandmaster Shin, and he's holding an envelope, and he like hands it over. And I go up and I grab a hold of the envelope, and then we're shaking hands, and the pictures are being taken. And as the final pictures are done, I go to walk away, and I feel this. And I was like, what? He starts tugging back on the check, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm taking this. And it was like this little awkward, like 5 seconds where it was like, I think the expectation I was supposed to give it back, but I'm like, I have no money. I'm sorry. I kind of pulled, and I remember like walking away, and I think I got one of these, like as I walked off the stage. Like, but there was like that little tug of war. I was like, oh gosh. And later I was like, I probably should have given it back. Like, I don't know. But like, again, I had no money. That was my way of paying for my way of being there. So yeah.
You tried to Obi-Wan Kenobi you, like, not the check.
Right. This is not the check you were looking for. So I'm sure we've all made some donations over the time to make up for it. So all good.
So you talked about some of the things that you've done, kind of in the background, I guess you would say, for the association. You've also been acknowledged for some of the contributions that you've done throughout the years. I know last year for Worlds you got the Community Service Award, and I'm pretty sure you've gotten quite a few at the regional level too, as well, right?
Correct. Yeah, I got the let me see, Region 8 Hall of Fame Community Service Award in 2015. So yeah, I mean, I'm humbled by all of it. And I mean, I don't think any of us do anything outside of the associate or outside of our dojang and look for the kudos. But the recognition, I look at it and say, if I get any type of recognition for it, first of all, I want to make sure that the people that help me do those things get recognized as well. But bigger, other than that, it's also, if I get recognition, I want to make sure that whatever it is I'm doing gets the recognition, meaning the nonprofit that I'm helping. There's a reason, I got recognized because I helped, but there's a reason I'm doing it, and it's because of that nonprofit or the community service that I'm involved with. So I try to definitely spin that, and definitely don't look at it as a look at me, look what I did type of thing. I don't think any of us do.
Yeah.
But
so go ahead and talk about that a little bit. Talk about the I know you have a current project that you have with your family.
Yeah, it's funny. I go back to community service or nonprofits were always a big thing in my family. I look back at my parents and even my grandparents. They were always involved in something, which I think instilled that giving back purpose. which I'm very thankful for. But they're always involved in something, but they always made it look fun. Like I remember my parents were involved. They're a volunteer fire company, and my mom was on the ladies auxiliary. My dad was at one point the chief. But we would go to like festivals or help out the fire hall and do stuff, and the kids were always involved. And they always made it look like my parents are having fun, but you didn't realize the bigger picture at the time, that they were actually doing something good for the community. And then all my both my grandfathers and both my parents are involved in the Lions Club. Same thing, very involved. Never complaining about it, always helpful, always thankful to be helping to give back to the community. So I think that was one of those things. It's like it was always in the back of my mind, like always doing something outside of what you do for yourself. And it wasn't until probably you mature a little bit until you start to find like what's my niche, what can I get into. And we've given back in different ways, and through the school, which we'll sidebar that in a second. But one of the things that was impactful for me personally and our family, and I say our family because it started with my father-in-law's sister and my father-in-law's basically executive assistant were diagnosed with breast cancer within a month of each other. So it was one of those things. And my father-in-law's sister didn't have a lot of money. I mean, she's not poor, but she didn't have a lot of money. So she was one of those things where she was just like, could use some financial assistance. And the family kind of came together and said, we need to do something. So in 2009, when this all happened, we put together literally a roadside bake sale within a very short period of time, and we raised $8,000. And we took that money and split it and gave it to them. And then after that, it was one of these things just to help them with their bills, like get them through, help them out. And then we looked at that and said, I think we're onto something here. And that's where the beginnings of our nonprofit called Help the Fight started. And Help the Fight is it's a breast cancer nonprofit that our sole mission is to help breast cancer patients with gap funding. And what gap funding is, say you're a patient and you just need help with bills. Like I need help with my mortgage. I need help with paying the gas bill. We don't give the money directly to the person. They give us the bill, we pay the bill, and that is one less worry for them. So it's trying to help and ease the burden that they have to go through, one less thing that they have to go through, so they can focus on themselves, they can focus on their treatment. So 80% of our monies go towards gap funding, 20% goes towards pre-screening. So anybody that comes to us and says, I need pre-screening, I can't afford it, we will help pay the bill for the pre-screening so they can make sure that they have the preventative measures put in place to catch it early, because we all know that early detection is huge and definitely increases your odds as you go through the process. And to date, like I said, I've been in this from 2009. We've raised over $800,000, and we've also aligned ourselves with Penn State Health and WellSpan recently. So we have two major healthcare facilities that we have our name connected with, that we give monies to, but then they also have a wider range or a wider net that they can then connect with patients. Right. So if patients come to them asking for funding or need assistance, we're there to help support that, and then they can use our funds to go beyond that. So hundreds, if not thousands, of patients benefited from this since 2009, which what more could you ask for?
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you for sharing. You kind of mentioned this, but it seems like Mimidis Karate definitely embraces that same kind of mindset of helping the communities. So talk about some of the things that you've been able to do, with your training partners there at Mimidis Karate.
Sure. One of the things we were heavily involved with was MDA, muscular dystrophy, and that's always been one of the main ones that we've helped with over the years. And credit to Miss Katrina Fosnot, she's kind of picked up that ball and started leading that charge for Mimidis Karate in the last couple of years with the called Shave-a-thon. What is it? St. Baldrick's, yeah. And also kind of turned into St. Baldrick's, and so lots of great things happening there. The one funny aside with the MDA Kickathon, I remember it was the first year that we did it. We had no idea. I mean, again, we the students had no idea what we were doing or what to expect. But Master Midas was like, okay, here's a pledge sheet. Go out and have somebody give you a penny a kick, a dime a kick, and we'll see how many kicks we do in an hour. And then you go back and you tell them, this is how many kicks you did. And it was before the whole like, I mean, somebody could give you like, here's $20, but like our whole thing was like, because we were a karate group, let's do the penny a kick or whatever. And people would ask you, well, how many kicks do you think you're gonna do? You're like, an hour, I don't know, 500, something like that, whatever. That was a goal. And at the time, that seemed like a stretch goal. So we got a bunch of people signed up, and we went through our first kickathon, and a couple of us got in there and we started doing kicks, and we were like in a zone, and we're doing kick after kick after kick. And at the end of the hour, we were almost 1,500 kicks. And we had to go back to people that were supporting a dime a kick and be like, by the way, kind of blew out the goal, and now you owe us. And to people's credit, they did pay up, but it was funny because it was like, well, the goal was 500 and we kind of maybe tripled that, but everybody was good about it. The response was great because it went to a good cause. But after that, we found a lot of people just gave us a flat donation.
You kick as much as you want. This is what I'm giving.
Right, yeah. You do what you do, but here's what I'm going to do.
Going to the black belt camp for years, I would always see all of the Mimidis Karate black belts. Talk about your time. Like you said, you literally have grown up with the studio.
Yeah.
And, talk about some of the people there and the influence that Master Mimidis has had on you and in the martial arts, and obviously I'm sure outside of that as well.
So specifically at the clinic, or just in general?
Just in general, yeah.
Gosh, I mean, I think you kind of said it before. There's so many people that have come and gone. It's hard to just even name names, but like, I mean, at the studio, I mean, we have a great core of instructors at the studio now. And it's just, you see, it's kind of like, the region or like, the groups that we all kind of hang with. You see and rely on the same people that you've come to know and trust. And that happens within your studios too. But boy, to name names of people that have come and gone, that's tough. Because
you can just talk about like, Mimidis Karate is some of my favorite people, yourself and Cindy Jones and the Falschnotts and Violet, and that's just talking about some of the higher ranks, but I'm sure there's plenty others. But just great people, awesome training partners.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, those are the people that you look forward to training with. Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. Falschnotts, Ms. Horst, Ms. Jones, Ms. Reffer, Mr. Jones. Gosh, I'm not forgetting anybody, but just great people right down the line. That's your core group. That's the people that you are that you can come into and you can trust the class with, and hopefully they feel the same way about you, which I think everybody does. But just a great group of folks, and it all comes from our leadership, Master Mimidis, who has instilled that and entrusted us with the classes as well. Even look at some of the other folks, Mr. Hess and anybody else that has trained with Mimidis Karate.
Tom Lyons.
Yeah. I mean, Tom's got his own thing going on now, but for sure, Mr. Lyons when he's was at Master or Mimidis Karate. But yeah, I hate to keep going on because I'm afraid I'm going to miss folks.
No, it's
so.
Okay. What do you think what's the secret of like, why Tang Soo Do breeds the camaraderie that it does?
I love that question. And, I think in life, we're always like looking for what's the secret? Like, what's the secret to this? What's the secret? And usually you find there's never any secrets. It usually comes down to a lot of hard work and then just your dedication and passion. But what I found specifically with Tung Sudo is, you know, it starts early on. We've been doing this for a long time, and I think we missed each other probably in our competing days by just a little bit. But you find that like once you start to get to a certain age, or you start to get to a certain level, and you start to compete, you find that that's your core group, and it never like goes away. Like
Right.
that group travels because you're probably all testing about the same time. You're all, around the same ages, and that all of a sudden becomes, whether it's at the regional level, the local level, or the world level, those friendships start to bond because you know you're hard competitors, but at the end of the day, you're brothers and sisters because you are tough competitors with each other, and you find that that starts to form early on. And then the other thing that I find is, I think, especially as we get older, the bond of testing, the sharing of struggles, whether it's in life, whether it's in Tung Sudo, the wins, like you care about the people that you're with, and seeing people on a regular basis helps. Really tough right now because of all the situation that we're going through around the world. But like when we had regular activities and events, like there's nothing more that you could look forward to than to catching up with those same people and sharing the struggles and sharing the wins and sharing, forging those friendships that truly do last a lifetime. And the one thing I think about is, and I can't take credit for saying this originally, I forget where I heard it, but we come together from different parts of the country, different regions. We all speak different languages, but we all have the universal language of Tung Sudo. And how cool is that? We go to a master's clinic and you train day in and day out. And I might not be able to understand what you're saying. You can't understand what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, we all do the same thing, and we're all pushing each other. We're all encouraging each other in different ways. And that just creates a bond that, I don't know if you want to call it a secret, but there's definitely a bond there that is formed that certainly lasts you a lifetime, no doubt.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember you talking about Masters Clinic, and one of my favorite memories of that was the year I was testing for my red stripe, and you were, I think, in your second year for fifth dan, and they give you the time to break out and go train on your own. And you and Master White let me tag along with you guys to train for that afternoon. And we found a place and we got kicked out. Then we went outside, and
That's right.
and yeah, just those, it was probably 3 hours of training, practicing, doing your forms, laughing. Like it was, it's just a great memory, and a bonding moment where it's like, man, that was a lot of fun. Like,
Yeah.
and then you get on the floor and then you see everyone out there, and it's just a moment that you remember forever. Because I
Oh,
still tell
absolutely.
people, it's like Master Robinson was up there, Master Black, Master White, like all these awesome martial
Yeah.
artists. Um,
Yeah, those things tend to stick with you, and you remember specifically. I think once you hit black, but you remember your tests. But and not because it's the most recent, but my Odon test, having it couldn't have been more perfect. Lined up beside Master White, Master Adam White, and it was like we're lined up. We kind of looked at each other like, we got this, and it was like so much fun and hard. I mean, we trained hard, we tested hard, but we having that feeling of like he's right there. We know we're going to be paired up once we start doing like different things, and like that level of like I got somebody I'm working with that I absolutely trust, and now we're going to have some fun. And it took that burden of like stress of to test, like even though you as could be as prepared as you feel like you could be, and I think we were. It was that feeling of call it comfort that here I got my brother's right beside me, and we're going to have so much fun today. And I'm telling you, that was probably the most fun that I had at a test because of that. And those are the things that you can't replace. And it's hard to explain that to somebody that doesn't go through this. So somebody that's a non-practitioner, my wife, It's hard to explain those types of things when you go through it, and it's your family outside of your family.
Right.
No other way to put it.
That's an interesting, like, how being someone who's, your wife isn't in the martial arts, how's the balance trying to figure out with two kids and a wife, and also wanting to contribute at the studio.
Yeah.
How do you find a balance in that life?
Well, I think we talked about early on, even in our dating years. I'm like, this is what you're signing up for.
Right.
Like I'm not letting anybody take that from me. But she's very supportive. She knows that this is part of who I am. So I love that I have that support. But no lie, I mean, now that two kids and a full schedule, and then doing stuff that I personally want to do, you may feel selfish doing it. Like, I'm gonna go teach class, and it's like, but there's never any like, oh, you're gonna go teach class. It's like, okay, like that she gets it, and the kids are supportive. Daddy's going to go do karate, and it's like if you have to go away for an event or a weekend, I think they think it's cool, which I really like. Um, but yeah, it's one of those things that the balance becomes harder, especially with the younger kids, because now they're in so many activities. Like my oldest, he's in right now travel soccer, lacrosse, and basketball during this winter session, and I'm like, dude, how do we get to this point? So things start to ease up here in the next couple of weeks, but yeah. But then when the second one, he's going to start soccer in the spring as well. So then it's going to start to be, you take this one, I take this one, and that whole balancing act starts to happen. So we'll get through it. I know it's a short period of time, so we're going to enjoy it as much as we can. I know we only have this sliver of time with them before they become super independent. So just got to soak it up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we're in the same boat too. One started dance, and the other one's about to do softball, and they're both still doing karate. And Riley's about to test for a second degree.
Yeah,
so
that's great. Yeah, my oldest, he, like I said, he's 8, and we had a talk. I don't know, it was over a year or so ago. Like my whole thing was I want to be the dad. Like I don't want to be like the coach that's put too much pressure on. And I've taken that same approach. I've taken that same approach with martial arts, whereas I didn't want to be like, you're starting and you're going to stick with it and nobody quits. Like I didn't start till I was 10, so I didn't want to feel like you have to start at 5. If they wanted to, that's great. So I left it up to them, or I'm leaving it up to them. And I had a discussion with my oldest, like I said, about a year or so ago. I was like, because I was getting the itch. I was like, buddy, you want to start classes? And he just looked at me deadpan in the face. I do. I'm just not ready right now. And I'm like, okay. I was like, and I think it's because he's going through these other activities, which I think is great. I think I like that he's forging the friendships through these different sports like we do through martial arts. But I do think at some point he's going to get the itch to jump in. And what I'm kind of hoping, and we'll see, and again, I won't pressure it, but when my youngest gets to the point, maybe I can have them join together. And then that's something that maybe they can do together as they get a little bit older. So we'll see. My little one, he's a pistol. That he's going to be the one that's the aggressor of the two. So I may have to rein him in sooner than later.
You're going to have to get him in a little earlier.
Yes. we joke. We always say, like, if we had the second one first, there wouldn't have been a second one. So he's giving us a run for the money.
That's awesome. Yeah, Master might have said she loves him because of me.
That's true. There is some charm that he beholds like no other. That
is the Greek charm.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, hey man, believe it or not, it's almost noon.
Crazy.
Yeah. So any closing things, anything we haven't talked about that you want to touch base on? I know you wrote some notes. Is there anything else you want to
Gosh, I mean, Well, I feel like we could pack another hour, but
There's no question.
you know, I go back to, and we talked about it, like giving back. Um, and you know, part of it is the encouragement comes from Master Midas as well. As like he reminds us that we are, it's whole body. We don't just show up and do the punching and kicking. So giving back, and I guess one of my closing things I would say, because it's also a passion of mine, is think of how you can give to your community, and it doesn't have to be money. Maybe it's just time, or maybe it's a reference. Like finding, if you have a skill, or if you are networking with somebody that could help a nonprofit in some way, that's doing your part. Like again, I think a lot of people come down to, well, I don't have all the money, I can't write big checks, but that's a small part of it. I think with, especially, you know, being as close as I am to our nonprofit, a lot of it you find people's time is even so much more valuable than the dollars you bring in, because if you get more volunteers, the more you can accomplish. And so I think, you know, going back to Masterminds, always reminding our students that it's the whole body, it's the whole person. Give beyond yourself of what you give in the studio. Be that pebble that has that ripple effect that just can last, you know, and go on and on. But you know, from my advice to anybody would be, you know, think about how you can give to your community outside of your dojang. And I think that that's a responsibility that we carry with ourselves to help with the legacy of Grandmaster Shin, and for the association, for the betterment of what we do. Other than that, man, this has been fun. I appreciate it, the opportunity. Great time, great memories. Like I said, we probably have another hour we could pack in here, but I don't want to bore everybody with our stories. But
you know, it's fun to get a chance to connect with people. Like you said, you get so used to seeing them, you know, every month or at least every other month, and then we're going on a year now where we haven't had a chance to do a lot in person. So, you know, we get to chat every once in a while on text. So it's nice to get a chance to talk for an hour. So I appreciate you joining me.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate
absolutely.
everybody
Thanks everyone
that
for
jumped
joining
on.
us. Really appreciate it. And, you know, feel free to share this for anyone who didn't watch live. We still get people saying hello. Master Couture Kelly says hello.
Awesome.
Region 9. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And sir, I will see you later. Tong Su.
All right. Tong Su.